The Pfaff Creative 3.0 sewing machine has an area called a Stitch Creator. Now, this area might intimidate a few people, but you know what? I've been playing with it just in the last kind of 5 minutes, coming up with new stitches. This is something you can take a stitch that is in the machine and tweak it, get something totally new. One of the things I love to do is actually take a stitch that's just a single normal decorative stitch and triple it. So that's why it looks really thick on screen right here, because that's what I was playing with. We also use the Stitch Creator when you see a stitch on somebody else's machine, like another brand of machine that you wish you had, you can create it. So let's start with just something a little bit basic. The Stitch Creator is this final tab at the bottom of the side, and I'm going to just delete everything. You can touch and hold the trash can and everything will clear out. When this is empty, this is what I like to use it for. So you can come over to some of your decorative stitches and start to play with them. So for example, let's just try this stitch. So there's a couple things that you can do. Did you see that this stitch is just one of those, like it's going to stitch a single line as it sews? So if we go into the Stitch Creator, when it's highlighted, and highlighted means that it's green, all the points are green. So for example, if they're not green, they are white. To make them all selected, touch and hold this little area here. This is called the select stitch point. So if you touch and hold it, it selects all the stitch points. That is when this feature becomes available. So if we go ahead and touch 3 times, notice that when we see it on screen, now it is nice and heavy. So if you've seen some of your decorative stitches that are a lot heavier than your others, you have a whole menu of these. You can turn every decorative stitch that you have into a triple or heavier version with just a touch of a button. So this is ready to stitch. Now as we go along, if we find stitches that we want to save, remember you can come up to the little folder with the arrow pointing into it and pick an empty spot in your personal menu 6. Remember there is actually 10 spaces on each of the 3 menus. So you could store up to 30 stitches. Use them, delete them as you need, because you can see the difference there. It's a lot heavier. There we go. So as you make something, if you're like, oh, that's cool, save your stitch. Okay, so let's go back into Stitch Creator. Let's just delete that. Let's try something else. So let's go into some stitches. This is one that I was kind of playing with. We'll start with this one. So when it comes in, they are all selected. Another thing that you can actually do is add a stitch. So if you just add, see right where that little square is, you are adding a stitch. So even just by adding some stitches and then touching the check mark, look what it did. It gave more separation between those stitches from what we had originally. Let's go back to the Stitch Creator. And if we didn't want those stitches, we can trash them. Anything that's selected just with the larger green square, that's the selected stitch. All right, so that's how we could back up. We could even eliminate one of, let's just eliminate a couple of them. Watch this. Now they're closer together. I bet we could even get them to kind of overlap themselves if we were to, oh look, we could start to overlap them. All right, okay. I am one to just kind of want to push and try different stitches and try them out. So here's another thing we could do. We could highlight all the stitches, so we'll get them to all turn. Another thing you can do is actually duplicate them. So if you duplicate one, and then you can mirror image it. Now the only thing is, so watch what happens here. When we mirror image it, the last stitch is got to connect with the previous stitch. And that's why there's this big jump all the way across. So that might not be what you want, because that's going to stitch all the way back across there. So if we didn't want that feature, we could actually go back, mirror image that, or even delete that section as we go. But let's say we added some stitches in here. You have control of a couple things. We can move it just by touching it. We can fine tune it with these arrows. So if you can use the little grid that's showing on screen and actually get it to go where you want it to go. So it's nice and straight, or nice in the right angle here. So if we were adding this little V into this stitch, maybe not the ideal stitch, but you're seeing what I'm able to do. I can control what we started with and then add to it. Okay, so maybe I don't want that. Again, I can just back up. And let's just actually try with a whole new stitch, touching and delete it all. All right, so here's one that I was playing with. Let me show you how you can select stitches in a section. So right now everything's selected and there are 46 stitches made up with this whole entire one repeat of this stitch. Okay, so I'm going to touch that so nothing is selected. If I touch it one time, it is ready to highlight from the very last stitch because that was at 46 of 46. And I'm going backwards here. I'm actually going like so. There we go. And then if I was to delete those stitches, I could go ahead and delete them, maybe even add one more right here. Oh, I kind of added that one. Let's do right to the end here. I'm going to fine tune that. And then let's take a look and see what we have. So we took a kind of a swirl and added a little whoop to it. So then when it started again, it started with another swirl and a little V. And again, if I want to save it, that's what I actually was playing with and how I had already saved it. But if I was adding a new stitch, I can just keep on going. Just by the way, if you're looking for the stitches that you're saving, you're going to go to your menu, go all the way to menu 6 with the heart. And here's your first page, second page, and third page. There's 10 on each page that you can access. So menu 3 and all the way through there. When you're ready to stitch them, just select them, pull them up. They're like a new stitch in your machine, ready to go. So here is, let's see if we got through all the Stitch Creator. Let's touch and hold. Good. All right. So again, so you can select stitches, you can delete them, you can move them, add them. Duplicate them. We can zoom in if we need to zoom in a little bit further. It's really unlimited to what you can actually do. So let's just, for fun, and this is something I haven't played with, so I'm going to just take a stitch that looks like something to start with. I can tell this is one of those extra thick stitches too. So if I don't want to, if I'm going to move stitches, I'm going to have to move more than one set of them. Here we go. Oh, yep, there's lots of stitches in this one little place. And we could even, oh, you know what we could do? So we could even kind of move them all up here and just see what kind of repeat we're going to get when we stitch this. So just touch that. Hey, whole new stitch, ready to save. Love it. And there it is, saved into my memory. I love to take stitches that already exist, change them up, and then stitch them out.